question about what is deeper learning. And while we're not specifically asking that, we're hoping that these questions draw out what deeper learning means to you as parents. So what I want to do is start off before we actually even go around and do intros. One is to let Julia, who's behind the camera, come in front of the camera and share some stuff about today.
So I know some of you, but not all of you. So my name is Julia. I normally am the communications person at AQE, and today I'm here to help capture what the conversation produces. And one of the ways we're doing that is using Facebook Live. So we're broadcasting what we're saying here to our Facebook page, AQE's Facebook page. If you want to go look at it later, you can check in there. But what that does is it lets other people engage in our conversation while we're having it, and kind of make it even bigger and tap into these other conversations that we're having around the country and people who aren't even able to make it to those places to have those conversations. So just kind of making it as big as possible. And I just wanted to make sure everyone knows that and knows who I am, because I'm not going to say anything else. I'm just going to be back there behind this phone the whole time, and know that you're being recorded before we kick everything off. And just to like not feel comfortable about that it's like part of the bigger thing. So yeah, thank you all for being here. And
Keep it PG.
Yeah, that's it. This is our Facebook page.
And some people know what I'm talking about. I ain't even gonna say name. I'm just saying. It's PG. I love you. Hello. All right. Please feel free to get something to eat. So how we want to start off is I'm keeping you here for an hour and a half max. That is my goal. That is my goal, because it's late, and just in general, I think after an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes, it becomes blocks the eyes and people gotta go. So, but I want to start off real quick. Can we throw out some community agreements? So, community agreements or ground rules. Some people call them ground rules. Pretty much how we're going to operate in this space. Has anyone ever done community agreements before or ground rules? And if so, then kick us off. We got a ground rule, community agreement that we're gonna follow in this meeting. And just use your outside voice.
My outside voice. Okay. To respect everyone's opinion.
Mm-hmm. Like that.
Thank you.
Anyone? Anything else? Natasha?
Yeah, like not all being quiet.
Okay, so I noticed 1, 2, 3 of me. Let other people speak and return, and then let 2 people speak before you. Then, if you want to chime in, you can go after.
Yeah, those are for folks who you know yourself. You know you like to talk. You want to be out there all the time. This is your guide rule, so you don't have nobody has to turn to you and be like, "Who's talking again?" It's like 1, 2, 3. Okay, it's my go. Ain't nobody said nothing. I'm gonna go again. You know. So, all right. Any other ones?
What do you mean by 1, 2, 3?
So somebody, you feel like you talk a lot, and you know, one of those people that you're constantly, you know, we've been in meetings, someone's constantly talking. So your rule is that you speak, and then there's 1, 2, 3 people before you get to speak again. Because some people just speak after each other. So if 3 people go after you, or if no one goes, and you're sitting there like, I know one's going, so I'm gonna go. But this is your rule, so you count 1, 2, 3 people go after you, and then you can speak again. Any other ones? Okay.
One mic.
One mic. Everybody understand what that means? One voice at a time so we can hear each other. Anything else in the space we want to keep?
We have one from Facebook, which is "Don't yuck my yum."
Oh, don't yuck my yum. Okay. That's Natasha usually says that one. Natasha, you want to explain what that is?
So don't yuck my yum pretty much sums up, we all gonna have different experiences, different opinions. And so you may disagree with something that someone says, but you don't have to jump down their throat. Like, you don't have to be like, that's the dumbest thing I heard. So, just being really respectful of people's opinions and their thoughts, and really finding respectful ways to push back when need to.
Any other ones?
I think we need to do we're gonna do it.
Like what set your stays here? Is that
Well, actually,
we're
we're live, so
already broke that rule.
so actually, the outside is already contributing by sharing this last one. But if there's no more, I mean, we'll keep this up here. If people think of other things, we can add on. I didn't, you know, it's a smaller group. When you have a larger group, it's a little easier. It makes more sense to do this because it's a little unwieldy, you know.
this?
Yes, thank you so much.
When you have a lot of folks. So
Will we live?
I'm gonna stick it right
Yeah,
here
so
so
we're
everybody.
So it's on our AQB Facebook page. So it's we're going live on Facebook. Julia explained this earlier. She can probably.
Yeah,
Briefly
right
do it
before
again.
you came in. So we're doing a Facebook Live broadcast of all of these conversations that we're having in different places around the country. And the purpose of that is so that
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
other
only because the
people
camera
who
will see.
aren't
I
here
imagine.
with us
Mm.
can kind of learn from what we're processing here in ourselves, and then also you also have an opportunity to watch other conversations happening in other locations and sort of like make it a bigger conversation.
So I was sharing that we had one in Rochester a few weeks ago. This week we had one in Camden. This one is the first one that's just parents, and so we're interested to get the feedback from that. It's really going deep and understanding what deeper learning means and how parents and young people define deeper learning. Ultimately, at the end of it, which will be done by July, is a white paper is created, a report that local groups can then use it to support the work that they're doing on the ground already, but also hopefully will synthesize and show the connections and the patterns of what parents and students around the country understand in regards to deeper learning and how they define that. So what we can do, can we just go around, introduce ourselves? If you can say maybe what borough you're from, your name, and if you have children in the system, you can just say how many children in the school system. So I'll start. My name is Zakia Ansari. I'm actually the advocacy director for the Alliance for Quality Education. My son is about to graduate. He's a senior at Eagle Academy, Ocean Hill, Brownsville. He's about to graduate. He's number 8, and I will have graduated all my kids out of New York City Public School System. I'm super excited.
And you just
yes,
graduated
and
one day.
I'm a little overdressed than normal because one of my daughters graduated from City College today. So it was City College graduation this morning. Conversation with parents.
And she looks like this every day.
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
All right, let's keep
So,
moving.
Natasha Capers, I am the coordinator for the New York City Coalition for Educational Justice, as well as a parent of 2 boys who attend public school, both in middle school, one who's about to graduate and go to high school later this month.
My name is Chevian. I have 2 kids, a college freshman and also a sophomore. And I'm a parent and an active parent leader.
My name is Janet. I live in Brooklyn. My son is in first grade at PS 241 in Crown Heights, and then he has 2 little sisters who are 3.
My twins are 30. Her twins are 3.
Okay.
It means something. That's awesome.
Kendaya, I'm the community organizer for Kiwi. I don't have kids yet.
Hi, I'm Tanisha. I have 3 children. My oldest is 24. She's actually a graduate of BMC. BMCC. She's a college graduate of BMCC. I have a 15-year-old. She is in Urban Assembly Academy in 9th grade, and I have an 11-year-old who is about to graduate from his charter school, or Harlem Link Charter School, but he is going to Eagle Academy for the Young Men of Harlem.
Yeah, my name is Victor Jordan. I'm actually a member of Community Board 17. My daughter's a college student, majoring in foreign relations. And I guess that's about it.
And my name is Ruby Miller, and I have 3 children. One is 11. She goes to MS61 for Tumor Academy. And the other is 9. She goes to the Jackie Robinson School. And then I have a 17-month-old.
God, she's so cute. We're going to bring her in before this is over. That girl, she's so cute. Right. Oh my God.
And Lynn Sanchez is on Facebook Live, says hello.
Hi, Lynn.
She's from the Bronx.
I love it. All right, so we're gonna keep it moving because as I shared before, I want us to be in and out. So I want us to, you know what I was supposed to do with that too? So maybe we can do it real quick because it's supposed to be part of the icebreaker and going around. If everybody could just go around real quick and say, even if you said your name already, what is your favorite dessert? Let's start here.
Ice cream. No cake.
What
No
kind
ice
of
cream.
Let's put it together.
Smart.
It's a really great cake. It's called Dominican cake. That's my favorite.
My name is Janet. My favorite dessert is cookies, but I'd probably prefer ice cream.
I don't get to eat a lot of dessert because I'm lactose intolerant, so that's sad.
I'm sure somebody's gonna be on Facebook Live say, "Girl, I got a recipe too."
I hope so.
I like peach cobbler.
I like rhubarb pie.
Wow.
Sorry.
And my favorite is cheesecake.
Me, high five that girl. She brings it in. That was mine too. Julia, what's yours?
My favorite is definitely ice cream.
Ice cream. That's so interesting. Ice cream is so bad. Teach his own, right? Nobody's yum up in here. That was one of the things right there. I remember. Okay, so we're gonna start off in large group, and the question is gonna be, and we're just gonna popcorn it out. So I'll just write down what folks are saying. Where's the first question at? It is over here. Okay, are you gonna do it? All right, today has got us on the note taking. So the first question is, what would you like your child to be able to know and do when they graduate high school? And like, we're not putting limits or we're not putting on limits of what's happening right now. What do you want them to be able to know and do when they graduate? No limits, right? It's the high school of your dreams. Your child is attending it. They graduate. What do you want them to learn and know and do?
Are we taking turns? or-
Yeah, no, just popcorn, whatever.
Oh, I want my child to be more than college ready. I think that the curriculum in school is not up to par, and that our children are not really learning the things that they need to learn. I want high school to be more centered toward teaching our children to live out here in the real world before they even go to college. To
Any examples of that? Like when you say the real world, like what is it?
Travel, that could be good. Like my daughter's in a program called Heath where they travel. They actually are going to Nepal this summer. But there's not a lot of that. Travel would be one. More advanced classes would be another one. Our children are just learning, like, I feel like the minimum, and they're not being pushed in good ways, in positive ways, to go above the minimum. They're kind of like being told, like, well, if you don't make the minimum, then you're not doing good. When they could do so much better than the minimum, is the way that the classroom is structured is not allowing them to go beyond what they're learning.
Anybody else? Yeah. What would you like your students to be able to know and do when they graduate high school?
I'll say stuff like budgeting.
Yeah.
Where they can learn how to like save and money market, things like that, so that they're not just reliant on loans, because I will be paying seemingly for the rest of my life for mine. So I don't want them to have to fall into the same, pitfall that I have. So things like budgeting, more like life, because not as much as we want all of our children to go to college, not everyone does. So this way they can still learn how to survive if they decide that they don't want to go right away.
Like trade.
Yeah.
Learn trade.
Because I wish I did trade first before I went off to college. I probably wouldn't have been in as much debt as I am now if I had done that first.
Anyone else? What would you like? Yeah, gotcha.
Let's see. Well, I have become a leader, so I like that to start earlier and have examples for leadership in schools, advocacy. Because when you have a voice, there are a lot of kids that are now doing a lot of advocacy work. But if it starts early, by the time that they're adults, they're so well polished. But that can happen at any age. But I'd like to see that more often.
Good one.
I like them to have a safe space to have discussions, because I think what the problem and the separationist time in this world, in this political climate, is the opposing views and not be able to meet in the middle to communicate. So if they can have examples of just putting stuff out there and having discussion, that would be the best way, I would say. You have more of that. Debate,
right?
that's my thing. I mean, I learned a lot in public speaking,
Mm-hmm.
even small forums, and then be able to, and that can be learned, and we can have examples of that.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I want to put a strong +1 on I want my child to be able to advocate for himself and for other people, to be able to do that. And I also would really love it if my kid graduated from school really loving and knowing how to read for information and also to read for pleasure. I want them to do both.
Yes. Anybody else?
I think that what concerns me a lot is the number of students from certain school districts that have to go to college and they have to take remedial classes. So they don't really have the basic skill, and it's a huge amount of students. I mean, certain colleges spend a lot of resources teaching students how to write, how to reading comprehension, basic mathematics. So that problem is so huge that, I mean, those goals I think are admirable, but I wish that the high schools could just do what they're supposed to do in the first place, and we wouldn't have this students spending years, sometimes more than 1 year, just taking the classes that's required to be ready to write a term paper, to be ready to take calculus, and I think that's unacceptable. But I think those, I mean that's a great ideas, and I support them.
So I was gonna say, like, I want my children to graduate high school with a full sense of who they are, right? And that doesn't just come from me or from my home, like they're with their peers, and I want them to have a full sense of who they are and pride in who they are, and also like to have a deep sense of like real history, right? Like having real knowledge of the place in which they are, right? Like in America, and like what does that mean? A real truthful history, but also a real truthful cultural history of themselves and of their classmates.
So deep understanding of the history and
And along with a cultural history of their own, but also respect and interest in other people's history and culture. And I remember my best interactions were with people from other cultures in other parts of the city. And sometimes people don't even travel. People are traveling more. But it's still weird to hear that people don't travel that far out of their boroughs. They stay in a little section. And it's also about introducing yourself to different cultures, different foods even, getting into different conversations. And I think you'll find a lot of people have more things in common if you just have that conversation. But if not, if things aren't the same, you're learning something new.
do you think things like being able to write a check? I just think it's like one of my daughters is like, oh well, what do you put? And I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, well, that's right. She doesn't know this, right? And she's not getting it in school, but it would be really great because the first thing you do when you're in college and all those other things, right? You gotta pay these bills, and so understanding that, and sometimes it comes in the form of a check still. To just understand what that looks like and the different components. As I'm thinking about it, I do remember learning that in school. Like we learned, what does that number mean over there? It's the check number. It's and this line, and then the and I learned that. But when you learned it back then, it was just, okay, this is cool, and then realize even this ramifications later, but I knew how to write a check. And even though we're quite electronic still, to know these things are important. Like Roman numerals, kids should know Roman numerals.
Yes.
Kids should know how to script.
Yes, that's what
I'm
gonna
so amazed that they're not making the kids write script in school anymore. And another thing to add to your point, Sakia, is learning about good credit. My daughter is 24 years old. Her credit score is a 750. Because once you get into college, they're gonna start sending them little credit cards out, and if you don't know how to use them little credit cards, then you be in debt with no money and no credit.
I think that was a class that was probably financial literacy. And some of them they do that. They do explain that. and the 5 items of negotiability on a check. And also writing script, because I you see the seniors who have to write their names. It looks like someone who's just starting to learn how to write. It's gigantic, doesn't fit on the line, and I have, that's something that I'm just appalled to see. We learn very, very young, and it's just not taught.
I just feel like they have made things that were simple when we went to school complicated, like addition and subtraction. Like my kid has come home with this long way to go to solve the problem, and I'm like, what are you doing? Just add the two numbers. So you can subtract the two numbers, like, and I can't learn this complicated. Just keep it simple, like especially with like math and stuff. I think that leads to algebra and that leads to calculus. But if you trying to teach them this complicated way when there's a really simple way to do the problem, it kind of confuses the kid and the parent.
Anybody? Yeah.
Yeah, I hope that I don't know if this is by the time my child graduates, but certainly before they leave the house, I would hope that they will have a real strong appreciation for and understanding of the value of like collective learning and working in groups and teams and as opposed to like I think that there's a lot of focus on the individual, like your individual scores, your individual achievement. And just speaking personally, it took me a long time to figure out like what other people were there for. And I hope that my child learns that a lot sooner than I did.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll just add that. All right. An intro. Okay. I forgot what I was gonna say. I think I said something like about investments, like what that looks like, because I think there's investments just to be just like we want to make all the money, and then there's socially conscious investments, right? And even understanding that, I know for a fact they don't teach that because I'm just learning about it myself. We get caught up in the stock market and all these other things, but there are ways to be conscious about even how you invest your money, right? And I think that's part of the narrative, kind of what is coming out of this, which is like we want our children to be caring adults and we want them to know others and be respectful of that, but also appreciate the differences, right? So I would probably just add that. I added what did I say? Investments, but socially conscious investments. Not just to be making money for money's sake, but to be investing in conscious types of ways. Hi, Leon. Leon, you want to introduce yourself? How we did intro? Intro was your name, how many children you have, or if you have children in school, and your favorite dessert.
Oh, my name is Deanna McNeil. I'm a parent leader for Lives Quality Education. I have 2 children, 19 and 24. One's a college graduate and one's in college, and they're both taking up the same degree, culinary arts. And my favorite food.
Dessert.
German chocolate.
Oh, wow. All right, we didn't have a German chocolate. All right. And Dion, feel free to come get something to eat. We're on the Facebook Live here. So our first question, if we want to put something in, the first question was, what would you like your student to be able to know and do when they graduate high school? So you have some that are not in school anymore. So those are some of the things that we came up with. Not just the basics of writing and math, obviously, but like what are some of the other things that we normally don't think about that would be good? And some of the things we like write a check, investment, debate, what else we have? Travel, credit, financial literacy. So those are some of the things that we pulled out. Anything
Able to take care of themselves as a citizen, of this world, and trying to be able to take care of themselves financially without, when they're not here, so they can take care of themselves.
So we're gonna move into. Anybody ever heard of Rural Cafe before? If you heard of it, raise your hand.
I feel like it shouldn't count if I raise my hand.
So what it is we're gonna split ourselves up equally, or as equal as we can be, into 2 groups, and we have 2 questions. And everybody's gonna get to answer both questions, but you're gonna do it separately. So one group is gonna answer one question first, and in 8 minutes we're gonna switch. The next group will answer the next question. Is that all right? So what I'm gonna ask folks to do, count off 1, 2, and then we'll break, ones will go together, twos will go together. So Ms. Hodge, you wanna start?
1, 2,
1,
2, 1.
2.
1.
Everybody counted? Yes. All right, so all the ones can start on this side. And then the twos can be in this question here. And let's see.
It's right outside.
Oh, you got yours too? I'm like, wait, I was even talking. I was talking to Dion. All right, who's the twos? The two's over here, one's over there. 2, 2. We're missing a 2. You're 2? Okay. Awesome sauce. All right, so you're gonna have 8 minutes to kind of delve in these questions. If y'all finish before, let us know, and then we can finish before then. So the first question, I'll try to keep it very big. So what kind of relationship do you want your student to have with their teachers or other personnel in school?
Big class.
What kind of relationship should they have?
Like class.
One of trust. Trust. Mm-hmm. Just keep popcorn. Go ahead. Anything else?
Be able to communicate, situations
And it's usually simple words, not like long words that everybody knows. Like
communication with what, like a trusting adult?
And now, society corrects it. And some teachers, someone that's
Well, I, as much as possible, mentor wherever the child would have that interest that the school personnel has. Help him to, or her to become more informed.
the way some areas
Yeah,
are,
everybody else?
things happen like while they're in school and just distracted.
Yeah, if you just think of yourself, or I mean, you your kid might have went to school that there was this kind of relationship already with other personnel, so it could be anybody, it could be custodian, it could be.
Maybe also a sense of community that in your school setting, not just the academics, but some in other social building your social and I think social is a really good one.
Someone to help them become a leader themselves. So leadership. So I guess that's like a mentor, right? What other kind of relationship?
I would say low expectations.
Respectful.
Like community
Yeah,
teachers.
trust,
respect.
respect is
Low expectations of our students sometimes.
Sanctuary place for them to go.
Like a safe space, yeah.
Flexibility or creativity of the curriculum. No creativity.
And it's supportive. Sometimes students may need support, encouragement.
And similar to that, I would also say constructive guidance.
Like individual.
Tough love too.
Constructive guidance.
Yeah.
The individuality of kids isn't like, I don't think.
Is that more academic or does it have to?
No, it doesn't have to
Every
be.
kid
It
is
just whatever
differentiation.
comes up,
And that,
person or
like,
teacher
is
would
not
be able
really-
to handle it.
Right.
Handle that, or go to others who would be equipped to handle it.
Right.
No differentiation in learning learning styles or types.
Right, like cookie cutter.
Yeah.
like,
It kind of should be
That's
interesting
on the board
to
and say,
teachers
okay,
or other
all right,
personnel.
you got it?
Yes.
Cookie cutter is all
Yeah.
kids
Yeah,
like
I was thinking of coaching, but in the case of a debate or a team, it would be relevant. Some teachers also have other assignments. They might
And that's why they don't
coach
know the
or
Right.
manage
coaching
the
is
chess
different.
club.
Coaching is very
the
different
sport.
from mentoring.
Right,
So
yeah.
coaching is
Trying to
pressure, like
make
so
them
much pressure, like
improve and rise to the next level.
Right, so kind of like the support,
stressed out.
Yeah.
support and encouragement.
Yes,
Yeah.
stress.
Yeah.
Less stress for the student
From Facebook, we have high expectations
High stress.
for all students.
Like high pressure,
High pressure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is good.
I would say a barrier to learning. I don't know if this counts as a barrier, but like I don't know enough. I don't know do it.
Right.
They just get me
Yeah.
in the
Let me jump in.
so
If
it's hard
people
to
have
support
stuff to
them.
say, you don't have to wait.
And the way they handle bullying.
We got trust,
No.
transparency, student, teachers. I mean, I'm thinking even principal, like, you know, it's beyond, it can be even beyond the classroom.
Everybody.
Yeah,
It should
so.
be.
Some administrations act like a secondary parent, you know, to where they do a lot more for the student than usual, you know, financially or, you know, something that a parent would do for them.
So like the sanctuary, do we have safe space? Okay.
The communication.
I would say like home, but I guess, you know, not everybody's
Everybody,
home
yeah.
is a conducive space, sure, but,
It's a barrier for.
Like a familial relationship, though, like a
I
parent.
actually had a
Right,
situation
that's what
where a
you're
young
getting
man
at.
put his hands on my daughter and he thought it was better to have a mediation with them before they called me. What? No, that's what they do now. They have the mediation with the kids and then they try to work it out with the kids without the parent. And I somewhat understand that.
we
but
had
when it
some
goes
young
to that
people who
point
talked
of
about that,
violence
you know,
or
like,
something,
they did have one, but they wanted more.
Somebody who put his hands
Adults
around
who,
them.
like they could talk to for, on this very level of,
That happened this
you know,
year.
I'm just having this issue and I just want to talk, you know? Which I thought was really powerful.
She's little like you.
All right, we're gonna take another minute. Another minute?
But they do it a lot. They have this thing, especially, I don't know, especially in high schools where they have these mediations between the kids that are not.
I mean, I think of my son's school, he has so many adults
So a lot of
that
kids
he
bring that
can
to
talk to, or even if I can't get through to him, or, you know, that I can just reach out and someone will speak to him, like, I'm on this, you know, I got it, or that he knows he can go to, both men and women, so it really is powerful and helpful.
That's what, yeah, it's great. Tough love. Tough love if necessary.
They have that in school, they have that there too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I made it very clear to them when something happens with my daughter, you better call me. So they called me, and they also called her.
Anything else off of Facebook? Anybody got any?
And it was so
No more
sad because
suggestions?
nobody gave me stuff. And I had to explain to my daughter.
All right, let's switch. Group one over here. Am I saying that right?
Support that you have. So
Yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like-
so one over here, two over there.
She went to go,
Oh.
look at that.
Excuse me. Usually can go over here. The same group. And I need to get those people.
Great, big. They erase Mason small, right in all large. Large and large.
All right, so these are what one has come up with the barriers that they feel like their children are facing in the classrooms and schools. So the class sizes are too big. There's not enough qualified teachers. They're not learning their true history. Where they're from, and also the true history of not only like their own history, but also like the true history of America, right? They're not. So we also talked about the outside community environment bleeding into the schools, and then teachers having very low expectations or too low expectations of our children. The curriculum and the lessons are very cookie cutter, so teachers are treating students as though every student learns the same way. That there's no flexibility or creativity with a lot of the curriculums that our children have. Standardized tests was a big one. They feel that there's too much high pressure and high stakes on standardized tests, and it causes high stress and high pressure on our children. There's no transparency in the curriculum, so they're talking about how the curriculum can like parents don't know what's being taught in the classroom. They don't know what's going on. Like they can't really be involved in how their children are learning. And then also, this was a big one, was communication between the school and the parents, and that
then I
leads
think
to and
with-
affects the children's
I don't know if
ability
this is what you meant, but with that
to
brought
learn.
up.
Does anyone have
for
anything to
me,
add or want to like
is that
star
I
anything
sometimes
that they
think
think is really
the teachers
important?
and the personnel at our school are not
I find
resolving their
in
own
my
conflicts
visits of many schools,
in like
in my
what I
well,
think
I'm-
are like particularly
my
like
committee board
mature,
composes of
constructive, so
3
I want
school
somebody who can be
districts.
a role mo- like
And
a
I
role
find
model of, like,
a
behavior, like who is
resource disparity
treating
in many of the
each other
schools.
with respect.
Again, some schools, because of maybe the catchment,
resolving
the
their own
population in the district,
conflicts,
they have a pretty good
resolution,
resources. They get money from many different sources.
vibes
And in other districts, they don't. So I think there's the real problem to me is the resource problem. If somehow we could get people to share, I mean, like certain rich school districts, if they could we get them to share their resources with schools that don't have that much, so they can have maybe different kinds of programs that would motivate youngsters. We talked about trips and the list of different things that you could do with students that would make them excel. So I think to me,
No,
it's a resource problem that I see.
I like to start class size. It's always a problem. We're trying to work on it, but it's still not meeting the guidelines that we put forth.
Yeah.
Even inclusion classes, which is special ed and regular ed, is still too big for certain students. Because my son was in that class, but he was able to keep up. There's certain students can't keep up, and if they get lost, so that's hard. So we need a small short, because it used to be 10, now then 12, and now 30. Don't make no sense. When I was in school, it was 10, then 12, and that was the max. Now it's too large.
Yeah, for sure.
Respect for the
And
child.
another
respect for
thing
the teacher.
is usually if a school is in a poor area and they need a math teacher, very often they can't attract a math teacher for all kinds of reasons. And maybe they would have an art teacher teaching math, which is a disadvantage to students. If we can equalize the resources in terms of teaching resources, then maybe the well-connected schools don't have all the math teachers. That we can share the resources. Those resources are important because if you have an art teacher teaching math to your child, this art teacher cannot explain or appreciate mathematics, which is a very complicated subject. So I think if we can equalize even the teaching resources in all the different schools in all the different districts, so our children wouldn't be denied a math teacher.
As he's saying, some schools that have resources more than others. Schools that are in community together should share the resources or find, work together to help one another, to support each other's schools, because every school feeds into one another. So
Ultimately, we all meet in college or when we graduate.
Public schools, junior high school, all need to have that conversation and figure out what's working, what's not working, how we can help one another. Because each schools are going to have the same students, and you're feeling each other, basing it on our knowledge.
One of the buzzwords we're talking about is culturally responsive education. So we want to diversify curriculum, and that will happen hopefully very soon with the different textbooks that will express the culture of all nationalities and races of the population there.
Right. Yeah, do you want to explain a little bit more about culturally responsive education, just in case people might not know everything that goes into it other than curriculum?
Okay, so there are many answers to that, but I would say for me, what it means to me is seeing people like yourselves in the textbooks, what's reflected of what's around, and also having not only just people, but the culture of what each culture experiences. And I'm very excited to see what will happen with this new money that we've been given, to see what is created, what creativity can happen from that source. So, and recently we, as people don't know, we've been, there's been money that's been earmarked to help that.
Yeah, it's exciting, and it's not just about curriculum, right? It's also hiring more Black teachers so that our students see themselves reflected in the classroom, and also having anti-bias trainings with all school staff, not just teachers, but with administrators too, so that everyone's on the same page, because we know that there's implicit biases within our schools, and that negatively impacts our children, and ultimately that is a barrier to them in the classroom and in our schools.
There's a couple. Sorry.
Well, yes, I haven't really studied exactly what the term culturally responsible education means, but I think if we let's say when I went to high school, there was no discussion of Martin Luther King, and I think his what he did and the struggles, his commitment to nonviolence. To me, I can see that having a positive effect on students. I mean, we do have a severe gang problem in my district. I can see the inclusion of his life in the curriculum and his commitment to resolving conflicts and moving us forward nonviolently, having such a positive effect on all students. And I think, to me, I hope that's what culturally responsive education means.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
All right, one more minute.
But we don't go beyond that. We only talk about that one person or Malcolm X. We need the other people that did the same work and not celebrate it, and no one knows how understands all these other people who made us who we are. So that's another, not just saying Black culture, every culture, we need to see ourselves within the classroom. That's what I used to grow and learn, and now we don't even, look at it anymore and wonder why these kids don't like one another because they don't understand and know one another. And that's the problem. We have vast, I have 70 in the school. My kids graduate, there's 70 nationalities. So I'm like, they need to know about one another. Why we only learn about European culture? We need to learn about everybody's culture.
What were you saying, Julia?
I was just going to say there are two suggestions from Facebook as well, social and emotional problems. And I think part of that is a lack of ability to address social and emotional problems that kids bring into schools. Personal and home issues, bullying issues, all of these sort of get to what you were talking about with outside environment. So you can start that. And then also the lack of funding. So it would be part of resource disparities too. But funding specifically, without funding, you can't have those resources you're talking about.
Yeah.
And also, I think too, what comes undiagnosed, or maybe there's little work that's, well, now there's more work, but even in mental health, there's a lot of mental health issues that impact people in schools. Did you get that, Kendaya?
Sorry, what? I was really sorry. The kid is really cute.
Mental health. Mental health issues. Yeah. Just trying to, what are the biggest barriers in learning? Just being diagnosed and being dealt with. And there are a lot of people. There's doing some work that's been done in that area, but I think. Taking off the stigma, because there are a lot of people who don't want to deal with that. And you're seeing a lot of that being exposed in colleges.
And with this, these are a lot of the baggages that the kids are bringing in. So that's why some of the schools we have in New York are community schools, to where they bring in resources to help the kids with this this problem, not just helping the child, but helping the family and families as a whole.
Yeah,
to make them a better student.
Public schools better, our children better,
I think we're ready to
our teachers better.
Come on back,
assimilate
everybody.
back to the big group.
So how was that?
That was great. I love you.
You also.
What was was there anything, one or two things that jumped out at you in regards to, rather it's the relationship one or the barriers, that was something insightful or something we just want to pick off the paper? Anything that, I see some checks, and we have some of the checks over here too, but anybody want to share some things that you talked about in either one of them that was just like, oh yeah, that makes sense, or maybe it doesn't? Did you hear anything from Mary? Maybe you heard something, because you did actually listen to both.
Yeah, so a lot of things that for the biggest barriers to learning in like the students or that they think that their students are feeling in their classrooms or schools. Some of the big ones were class size. Class sizes are too big. That their standardized test was another one. That the standardized test and the emphasis on their importance put a lot of high pressure on our children and causes them to stress out, and that kind of inhibits them from being able to actually learn the curriculum. Another one that we talked about was resource disparity and a lack of funding. So because there's such a lack of funding in our public schools and we're not fully funding our public schools in New York State, it causes this resource disparity where some high-income districts have really great public schools and some low-income districts are struggling, and it's not fair. So we talked about that as a barrier. And then also all of this kind of, I guess, goes into the social emotional problems, bullying, mental health issues, all that I think can be kind of considered as one thing that, there's all these issues that can affect the student. We need to look at the whole student, right? And not just them as a student, but as like a person, as a human being.
So over here we had a few around trust was a big thing. High expectations came up from a Facebook viewer. Familial relationships, so young people that have relationships with an adult in the school that is like family, that trusting space. Earned respect, so that educators have to earn respect. I think young people do too, but educators have to earn the respect. And I think one thing that was really, it like brings a smile to my face, which is the conversation around, which is connected to high expectations, but educators and folks in school seeing students as teachers in the classroom and just in school period. And if you just imagine that overcrowded class, as we are working to get them to be small class size, but that overcrowded class that has 30 children in it, there are 30 children potentially from 30 different places in the world and the nation, and how honored that people should feel to have those young people in their classrooms. For the very reason I think Natasha talked about, and this could be the next person that discovers the cure for cancer or something, or the president, and that we're molding these minds. And imagine if we all looked at them as the precious gifts that they are, and figure out how we make it, have them become successful adults. So yeah, that was good. All right, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna move to the next question, which is gonna be, we're gonna do it in small groups. Yeah, let's do it in small groups, and then we'll come back and actually let's do it together because it's a small enough space. So the question is going to be, if you could redesign your school or your child's school, what would it look like?
Like physically.
Yeah. Or physically, not necessarily physically. Okay. It could be in the classroom. Okay. All right, I'm sure dry erase. Okay. Mess up people's boards. You're like, the school thing is not working. All right, I'm gonna get a paper. But yeah, so it could be physically, but it could also be in the classroom. All right, so anybody got thoughts?
Safe environment.
It's like she's not coming back to me.
All right, my idea of a school.
A house.
I didn't know this was school. I'm gonna write school, so All right now, that's all y'all got. I got no more writing skills. That's all I got. School, triangle, rectangle. That makes a school. All right, safety.
Replace the play outdoors.
Outdoor space.
And also like indoor, like gym, physical space.
A well-equipped library.
Oh yes.
You
get crazy now.
Art studio.
Well, a modern science lab that's
Yeah.
comparable to what we see at Brooklyn Tech, Stuyvesant, and what's the other one? Bronx Science.
Yes.
In all the high schools,
Right.
not just with those students.
And also with that, a multimedia lab.
All right.
Yeah.
Some schools have that.
Keep going.
Technology hub.
I mean, I'm sure folks know
then I'm gonna say a culturally responsive education with teachers that reflect the student
Better say
population
that, girl.
and
I'll be
race,
upset if you
gender,
didn't.
culture, ethnicity. I'm sure y'all know that.
We didn't know Natasha. Please tell us.
A sanctuary school.
A sanctuary.
Mhm. I mean, I think about school space, like I've been really captivated about thoughts about how I would want school space to look like if I could take down all the school buildings, what it would be, and I would want so much more transparency into the outside world, like windows that children can actually see out of, that aren't just filled with bars and locks, but that children can actually see out of them, and just and also that the ways in which we view learning and teaching how it's supposed to happen, like these rows of desks that point to a singular space, like that would be demolished in some way, that there would be small stations,
Like a
circles, more holistic ways in which teaching students, where there's more hands-on, more exploratory, like sensory type ways of learning and touching, and especially for younger students who don't learn by sitting desks.
leadership courses.
You say leadership?
Leadership courses.
That's for educators?
No,
I'm saying. No shade. I was just
No
asking.
no shade. It's like the street.
That was about to be a
Okay.
Okay, something also, which is happening in a lot of schools, are redesigned cafeterias.
Yes.
Better
with actual food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With real food.
With real food, and there's
Like I
some
see,
that
like
really
in
look like
Switzerland and Japan, like their meals, their school meals are so healthy and fresh, and
And
like they get
colorful.
salad. Yes, and they eat
have
really
culinary
well.
labs, like actual culinary labs.
They eat
where,
really well.
We need
I mean,
class
Can I share what
nutrition.
someone said?
Yeah.
Can I share what
Yeah.
someone said in the
Nutrition
comments?
classes.
Oh yeah, and I
Anything
also,
else?
I'd like a place for parents to hang out.
There you go.
And place for parents to hang out. And I don't know how this looks in like a physical space, but I would like a school that allows for children to make choices about where they spend their free time. Like,
Optional
I don't want to
time.
be in the cafeteria
Yeah.
at lunchtime. I want to be in the library.
My high school had that. We
Yeah.
call it optional time. Where you can go to lunch or you can do something else.
Like other places where kids.
Yeah, I think we should have a wide selection of sports. I find that the sports choices are not enough, and
Mm-hmm.
does allow certain students to develop their
Yep.
certain qualities, working as a team leadership.
Yeah.
So I think we should have a wide selection of sports in the schools.
Lynn online said restorative practice space,
yeah.
so a space where we can practice restorative circles and best practices.
I'd like my school to smell better.
That is so
it's the
real.
little things.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of beautification projects outside of schools. I like to have plants, living things in a classroom.
A greenhouse.
Just like some Febreze.
So it don't even have to be that fancy. Give me something to breathe.
So can I say I went to the same school, to the same elementary school as my children went to, and I remember taking them on the first day of school and walking in the building and be like, this building smells exactly the same. And I couldn't figure out if that was a good thing or a bad thing. Because one, like, it kicked in all the nostalgia, but it was like, this isn't the best smell.
We won't ask you what school that was. Anything else? Because we gotta go move on to something fun with this.
Oh, yeah.
Music,
Absolutely,
yeah.
yeah.
Music, of
Yeah.
course.
I was
Oh,
watching, there's
I
a
forgot.
show that I was watching last night called Treehouse Academy. And during the test that they had to take to get into the school, they had someone playing music. Even though it was horrible, it was guitar, but the fact that they brought the music in to help them relax so they can excel in the test. Because sometimes you need, like, if they play, even if it was classical or something, song where they're just not that awkward.
They're not
quiet.
thinking about, yeah.
Yeah.
So along with that, art. You can have
Yeah.
art, not a studio, but just art, beautiful pictures.
Oh, art in the school, like art in the school.
Actual art, pieces of art.
Okay, pieces of
artwork.
art, gotcha.
And that could be sculptures too. I mean, I've been to places with beautiful sculptures. There was
The children are creating the art. That's one thing I really liked about Eagle Academy. When you walk in, like you see all the art on the walls that the children have done themselves.
So
In my
before
firm-
we, I'm
oh,
sorry, I just wanted Elzara to introduce herself. Elzara, we did name, children, and favorite dessert.
My name's Elzara Cleveland. I have 3 children, and my favorite dessert, strawberry cheesecake.
You know, 3 of us don't want to I'm sorry, go ahead.
When my son went to like preschool, his preschool had a peace area, which was like where if a kid was like, the teacher could be like, could you go spend some time in the peace area? And they decorated it, and it was like it was just like a chill out space.
Because they're kids. They're not in control of their emotions. So we still learning how to be in control of our emotions.
So I'll give you one more chance because we're gonna work with some of these things in here, but
A class for hygiene. So there's some students who come to school and don't have resources at home to wash up, and they don't know some if they smell or not. So
Or like laundry.
Laundry room.
I see my son's high school. They take their clothes and they have wash and dry, so they wash their clothes and dry.
right.
Because I see a lot of teachers or whatever say, well, we're not getting no cooperation from the parents at home, so what can we do?
Yeah. Okay, so this is what we're gonna do.
One more.
Oh, yeah, one more. Absolutely, Elzara. You gonna put as many as you want. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Forgive me if it hasn't been said, but I wanted to touch back on those visuals. My daughter's elementary school had the mission statement blown up and at the front door of the school, but the students were also taught to learn what the mission statement is and what it means about their school. And it gave the students a sense of empowerment, but also ownership for what's going on inside of that building. So,
Can I add one thing that Elzara made me think of things? Interpreters for families. And that every station where there's whoever is welcoming folks into the building has some type of way of, even if it's just a few phrases, has like that translated at their desk so that they can meaningfully communicate with families. So it's not just like, I think I can just yell at you in a different language and somehow that would make you understand.
I have one more. Effective but welcoming school safety when you first come in the front door. Some are like prisons, and some are very welcoming. And a lot of effort has been put forth to change that in lots of schools, but not in all the schools.
So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna take 2 minutes. The group. So Elzara, you're gonna be in group 2. Group 2 only has 3, right?
Yes.
Okay, so group 2, raise your hand. All right, so Elzara, that's your group. So group 2 and group 1. I'm gonna let group 2 go first. You're gonna pick top 5 things over here. Doesn't mean other things are not important, but you're gonna pick the top 5 things. I'm not telling you why you're picking them, but you're gonna pick top 5 things. I'm gonna give you a marker. Y'all collectively come over here and pick 5 things. Come on, group 2.
Two.
Just put a star. Why you gotta start Joey? She can't just go with the process. Like, why they get that out first? I'm gonna let Victor help because he's the only man in this space. So there you go. And I know we ain't getting that word in edgewise. Wait, Sherion's coming. So you pick your 5 top things. If you had to redesign your school that you want to make sure is there. You only got a lot of time. You only got 2 minutes. Don't make me start singing Jeopardy songs. Doesn't mean nothing. Other things are not important. You're picking your top 5.
Okay, so that's exactly. Yeah, I'm right.
No,
I feel like that's the one I saw. I feel like I've seen her face before. Probably just around.
But how do you design things
Yeah, absolutely, because those
That's
inventions
fine.
come out of
You know, Jackie Robinson's actually very adamant. There's a lot we liked about.
All right, you got a minute, 1 minute, 1 minute.
The baby, yes, the twins, the baby skip Spanish. Jackie Robinson. Yeah.
I was gonna say, that's like extra time to chart was before.
Did your older
The
child go
oldest
there
one,
too?
she started there, and then the first one I was there before it went out of control, so I took her out.
All right, 30 seconds, 30 seconds.
Then they were in Exceed Charter School, and took them out of that.
What about?
So I took her full.
we need to
now,
talk
I think to deal with people.
and so far,
Ways to deal with people to decrease
I like that they're trying to go back to kind of.
All right, let's go, let's go.
Was that?
All right, awesome. Group 1, let's go. You all put an X by yours. Come on up, group 1, 2, 1. I'll join you first. Group 1, you put an X. You can obviously use the same ones if you want, no problem. But all right, you got 2 minutes.
I like,
Can we group them?
No, decisions.
Leadership skills.
Yeah.
So these are your top 5 factors. I'm gonna go with resources.
Well, Brooklyn, of course. Now, Community Board 17, which composed 3 school districts, 17, 18, and 22. Plus one of the 3 is 22. Next 18, and that's 17 is good. Where are you from? Okay.
Yeah, that's when we were supposed to say no one's a different.
Right.
Legal probably know your,
I mean, you can choose.
Yeah, I feel that's one of my, other things I also like, putting on the,
1 minute, 1 minute.
hygiene in the laundry room, and also,
Hard. 30 seconds. That's right, Natasha. That's right. 30 seconds.
yeah.
Is anybody home?
library.
Library? I don't mean that.
No,
I was
no,
like,
because
no.
there's public libraries. Public libraries. It's home. You can go there and get books.
All right, time.
There's public libraries.
All right, so everybody come back.
You can also download it.
So what we're gonna need is if you're in a group, we need you to sit with your group or closer to your group so you're in closer proximity to each other. Cause y'all got some work to do. Okay. All right. So group 1, where y'all at?
We're over here.
You're over there, okay.
What do you want to say?
So we're gonna give you a sheet of paper and you're gonna have 5 minutes.
like Sophie's Choice this or something?
All right, group 2, you over there? Okay. So this is what you're gonna do. Now that you're gonna take those 5 words that you just picked, or 5 things that you want to redesign your school with. So for group 2 is modern science labs, multimedia lab, culturally responsive education, sanctuary school, and restorative practices. And for group 1 is culturally responsive education, real food that's fresh, leadership skills, well-equipped library. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, Miss
Jim.
Jim? Okay, and Jim. And what you're gonna do, because y'all are so brilliant, and I have high expectations for each and every one of you. I believe you are learners as well as teachers. And in this moment in time, I want to bring out the creativity in each and every one of you. And how we're gonna do that?
I cannot draw as a
You're gonna have 5 minutes in your group to create a poem, a rap or a song that uses at least 2 of those words in it. Okay, I gotta give you at least 2. Okay, so you got 5 minutes to put together, and then y'all gonna bring it out, y'all gonna perform it, you know? Because y'all are brilliant young people. Oh, I'm sorry, brilliant adults.
I like that. Let's get it.
So.
And you look eager. Get me to watch you while you do it.
And I'll let you know when you have 2.5 minutes left.
I'm just here to support, so.
You need a mark? Absolutely. Of course, you
Victor, do you have any ideas where we can start? You're very prolific.
I created, as a kid, I put the
gonna be our first slide.
That's a long time ago.
This should be easy for me.
Should.
It's a short one. It's like a 2-minute something. It's not like a long drawn out thing.
Sanctuary school for our safety.
We doing a rap or a poem?
Justice.
Okay, you remember?
No, I forgot what I just said.
Oh man.
You think we're videotaping it?
So those 2 in the frame. Did you really record that?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
When was the first thing you started?
I started with the
I can't play you guys back, so don't forget what you say.
So I started leadership skills, modern science, multimedia lab.
Okay.
What do we want kids to have?
Somehow we have to try to make this sound
Not even writing on the line. Modern.
More than math. What do we want our kids to have? More than math.
Well,
No, we don't have much time. We only have 5 minutes.
I don't rap. So I only think that dances.
I'm sorry for going down.
What do we want?
Okay.
What do we want our
Kids to have.
Okay, so that's our response.
Responsive education.
It needs to be so much more than math.
Yes.
In this would have. You know what it means?
Come on, we gotta get our inner Cardi out.
There you go. I believe in you all. I believe in you.
Put it in.
This is why I'm supposed to bring my notepad.
What was the second one?
It needs to be so much more than just math.
Or this would have. I don't know, whichever you guys decide.
Maybe it's in this. The schools should reflect who they really are. Culturally responsiveness.
There's a reason why she came just in time.
You said school should reflect who they really are.
Yeah.
Justice for that.
Yeah, I like that.
Oh, that's a nice
You
one.
said school
Okay.
is.
Are we going with it? We don't have enough time.
Place to run and food from the farm.
There you go. Schools.
Well, we have
Schools should reflect who they really are.
There's 2 more. And Cardi music isn't very well.
I can change it to a modern.
They're gonna have the themes of the words, not the actual words.
Okay,
All right, 2 minutes.
That's so much harder than just
Justice.
And whatever words you use, just underline it so we know which words you use out of your.
And
And
what was the line?
And sanctuary. Oh, but then there's
No, no,
justice
a
twice.
place to run.
Yeah, or give them room to run. Give them room to run. Or that's fine, a place to run. That's basically
I
the
said
gist.
justice for all,
Food to
that's
farm.
cool, but you're using justice twice in the same kind of.
Food from farms.
Okay.
And
Right, that's
Okay.
maybe, is that what we have? We do have restorative practices.
Okay.
That's why the justice got spelled a little jumbled.
Okay.
Restorative practices.
It needs to
and
build them
Okay.
into leaders.
Wait a minute, place to run, food from farms. Stay with me. Not centralized kitchens. Give them books to read. Something, lead.
Yeah, give them books to read.
Like,
help them.
So
help
we should
them
reflect who
lead.
they really are. A place to run, food from farms, not centralized kitchens. Give them books to read.
I feel I can do this. Practices for.
Give them a place to read and room to lead.
Yeah.
Not centralized.
Modern science and multimedia. cultural responsibility.
I'll be doing my homework over there.
Give them.
Okay, what do we want our kids to have?
You're right, take out the intro.
Give them.
Right before.
What was that? Give them
Not
place to
centralized
run,
kitchens.
food from farm.
How about we would have,
Not centralized kitchen, give them
Farms,
books to
not
read.
centralized
they would
kitchen.
have,
Give,
So
Give
you're
them books
saying
to
that
to
you're
read,
supposed
and
to
room to,
They said
And
space
room
to
to
read.
read.
the science of
Okay.
things.
Oh,
in
space.
school.
Okay.
Yeah, space to
I'm
read.
sorry.
Yeah, space, room.
you can join team number one. That's community.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Space to read
in
and
this
room
school,
to lead.
we would have,
And room
right?
to
This-
lead.
Yeah.
in this
Or
one,
and
we
the
like-
skills to lead.
And the
And
skills to
and
lead.
the skills.
You're
to
agreeable, right? Right? Okay.
Yeah.
I think take out the intro.
All right. So everybody should be pulling up their last ones. You got about 30 seconds.
This one.
The kids being real hard for time.
That's right. I'm trying to respect the
And
time that
space
y'all
to
out
read.
there.
That's the library.
Okay.
That's
Food from
farm.
farm.
That's right.
You want me to win? There you go.
That's gyms.
Well, okay, you're gonna underline.
Reflect
Fuck
who
who
they
they are.
really
That's
are.
who they are backwards.
Elzor, do you gotta be?
To be seen.
All right.
Okay, we can end up
We're
with
good over there? All right. So who wants to go first?
Yeah. Let's
Okay,
go.
we're gonna be first, and we are going to. We're taking up leadership right now.
All right. See, you see?
It's infection.
All right. Let's give.
And we all voted on one of our captains, Azor, to say the word.
Wow.
All right, Captain. All right, here we go. Oh, wait. I want to wait, before you go. Wait. Are you recording?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. Go ahead.
Flowers.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Could you, can you come up with a quick name for your poem? I'm sorry, I should have said that. Quick name?
A title.
Title?
Victor.
Victor, do it.
This was CJ training review.
Yes,
And make sure you project for
Okay.
your online audience.
We had a few. We had only 5 minutes, so.
All right, no worries. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna have the place to be.
All right, everybody gotta stand up together. Y'all
Look at
see that? No place to be?
the place to be.
Man, that's creative. Come on, you gotta stand up there as a team.
Come
All
on,
right,
Victor.
here we go. The place to be.
The place to be.
Everybody's ready. Go for it.
All right.
We ready.
This is the
scene.
place to be. Modern science and multimedia lab, a culturally responsive education this would have.
All right.
Restorative practices and sanctuary schools, justice for all. That would be cool.
All right, good. Let's see what you got. What you working with? Is it 2 or 1?
We're one.
Sorry. My bad.
I know a team.
All right, teamwork, dreamwork. All right, you guys stand up. Who's back there?
Come on, Janet.
Pull up your word up on the thing.
You, Jasmine.
Oh, well,
You
that's
mean-
because
the
my
time.
So ours is called, is that too much to ask?
All right, that's
What do we want our kids to have? It needs to be more than just math. Schools should reflect who they are, a place to run, food from farms, not centralized kitchens. Give them space to read and the skills to lead. So we did groupings of actual themes, because you can't just pinpoint it in just one way. So should reflect who they are. That is CRE, a place to run gym, food from farms, fresh food, space to read. So library and skills to leadership skills, because we want them to be good.
Oh my goodness, I'm so proud of y'all. Y'all did the thing.
Under pressure.
People were like, 5 minutes. When I said y'all had to do it, people were like, no. Y'all had to do it. And then look, you put a product.
Produce results.
I'm just saying.
That's what happened.
High expectations. That's right. So we're coming to a closing of this. We have one more question. Then we want to go around and do some quick reflections. And if folks are open, we want to take a quick before we finish out? We've got like 15 minutes. But so one, just real quick, how was that? How'd you? Yeah,
That was cool.
fun.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Creative.
Yeah.
Creative.
Entertaining.
Thank you.
Got
That's what I missed.
Things that I can take
Say that
back.
It made me miss school.
Mm.
Ooh.
It's been a long time since anybody asked me to write a poem.
Right. All right. Okay, so I guess the question is, and we wanted to ask now, is why don't you think these things happen? Like what? And we gonna be, truthful and honest.
Board of
Why do you think
Education?
these things don't happen? Like we redesign our school day, right? And these are the things that we want to see in schools. But why don't you think they already exist? Why aren't they already happening in schools? Why do we have to envision them? I mean, we know they happen in some schools. I mean, let's be clear. But why do we think overall they're not happening in schools? We're not getting this type of product or things or programs in schools. Budget.
Budget, funding.
Funding.
Get the funding.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, those who control the funding don't prioritize school.
No.
Over reliance on standardized testing.
Oh, yes. Board of Education. Sorry.
Say more on that.
I feel that the Board of Education picks and chooses what children learn and what children don't. I've actually had six of them. And we have asked them about the tests, why, these standardized high schools and, a lot of these schools have to test for your kid to get into it. And I asked a head figure of the Board of Education, why is that? And she said, because that's the way it's always been.
Anything else? Why don't you think we're getting these things? Why do we have to envision them and they're not happening in all the schools?
I think there's a couple of things. One, I think that there's a lack of leadership at the school level. And the other thing is, I think one of the big problems is that we don't want to choose. Like we want all those things, and so then it becomes very hard to prioritize and advocate. And so maybe you get a little bit here, and you get a Chrome over there, and like you get some new books one year, and then the next year you get like a laptop cart and a robot, and then the next year you get a flyer, and but then the books are old and not so.
We don't have enough parents pushing.
Yeah. But they don't know that
Advocating.
they don't know that we can do these things if we come together.
Yes, we don't have unity among the parents.
Parents don't even know they have that voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what you don't know, they don't know they have the power to advocate for their children. They, just like a lot of parents don't know they have the power to opt out of this standardized test.
Yeah.
I think also there is a status quo that's maintained, seems to me, over decades and decades. I think there's probably vested interest in the way things are. I mean, maybe with the prisons of state, you need to have a constant flow of people filling them. Yeah, and because the schools are not producing
School to
productive
state,
citizens.
school to prison
So-
pipeline.
So I think there's some vested interest in the way things is, which is if you need to keep the system, make it certain
Am I
number of reps.
overstating if I say racism, classism?
No.
I'm asking Victor. I mean, that might be addition, but I'm not sure if that's what he's saying.
Well, no, I'm being very specific. I don't
Yes.
want to just want to throw terms around.
No,
I wanna
absolutely.
say what
I want
the
to capture
problem
what you're
is,
saying. Yes.
That you're decades after decades,
Right.
you're not producing productive citizens.
Mhm.
Instead, you're producing prisons for the prison. Like it's really specific what I'm saying. You wouldn't.
So there's an
Sorry.
interest
Right.
that's
So that there's an interest to maintain this system that doesn't really produce students who are productive.
To keep poor people poor.
Yeah, capitalism.
Our students are designed to fail.
And I'll take accountability a step higher if I could, because those who are charged to be the oversight or the overseers of the responsibility of the DOE do not weigh in enough or allow input enough from their appointed board on the practices, policies, and procedures that are being done.
Will you please add capitalism and a scarcity mindset?
Say this, the last one, I didn't hear the last one.
Capitalism and a scarcity mindset.
Scarcity. Can you say more about that?
Which is this idea that there's not enough to
Oh,
go
right,
around,
right.
so I've got to get mine for me and my
Mine,
family and my
yeah,
kid.
right.
Yep.
And which means
And
that
forget
there's
everybody
not
else.
enough. There's not enough. Not everybody can be successful.
It's kind of like that movie. Remember that movie 2012?
Yeah.
And they had the boats for the elite.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? And it
Keep
was just
going,
the
I'm
elite
interested.
people that were winning on them boats. Y'all know what
I
I'm talking
remember
about,
the movie.
right?
I want to know where you're going with it.
What I'm saying, it was to her point is that it was just the powerful people. They didn't want to let the average person on them ships. They was willing to let all of them perish. And it's kind of like that in our school system. Like our children are, you know.
And also, I think putting the power for all of this to happen in the wrong hands. As far as our elected officials, a lot of them, the same people keep getting voted in because there's not enough engagement, especially like even from my generation, because they've pretty much. I'm trying to think of how to put this. Like when we look at the elections, we see the age group that usually votes, and the thing is that they're at a point where they don't have children directly in the school system anymore. Even though some of them may have grandchildren, not all of them are invested in their grandchildren like how past grandparents were. So like they're just thinking of what's affecting them, and they're not thinking of what's affecting behind me. So they keep voting the same people who also don't have the mindset of we need to take care of our future. They're just about me right now, what's going, like, you know, like I see how even with tenant housing and stuff like that, it's about what's affecting them and not thinking of, well, my children have to live here someday or something like that. So it's like everything is about right here, right now, and they're not thinking how this is potentially putting harm on the children for their futures. Because like a lot of us, we're stuck in certain things because of decisions our parents made for them for that moment, because they weren't thinking of, well, I have to do this for what's to come next. So it's too much of that, and not being set in their ways and not wanting to change things. Because the thing is, the school system is pretty much in the same way, run the same way as it was for back in, you know, hundreds of years ago. You know, things were set for, okay, you're just going to get these types of jobs. It's not, even though they're bringing in STEM and all of that stuff, but it's like at the same time, they're still with the testing. It's like, all right, a lot of city jobs and federal jobs, you have to take a test for it. So it's like, you're only setting them up to be able to do this, and you're not. And then I look at these other schools, these new independent schools that are coming around that are very expensive, and they're giving them these things, you know, this type of education and everything. So it's like people have to get into stepping outside of the box as opposed to sticking to one thing, because the thing that would work 50, 70, 100 years ago doesn't work for now.
So I'm gonna let you. So Natasha, you go, and then I want to bring us back together, quick reflections, and then we're gonna close out.
So I was just gonna say, like, there's a belief system through racism, through classism, through capitalism, that Black and brown children, poor children, don't deserve this, because it's not that the quote unquote powers that be don't believe that education could be this way. It's not that there aren't schools that look exactly like this. It's just that they're not for us, right? And they're not for my children in Brownsville. But the governor wouldn't deign to send his child to a school without a library, so there is a belief system that they are undeserving of this type of education.
That was along the line of what we were talking about too. So what I wanted to do is you can go around, you know, one word if you can. I'll give you two. Just how you're feeling right now, or like, you know, what's your mood check type of thing. So I'll give you two words, max. Let's see, we're gonna start with Victor. He's the only brother in the room. So we're gonna let him go first, because we know we ain't let him go. He already got heard in edgewise before. So Victor, please.
Very interested. in what we talked about.
That's
Very impressive.
Invested in emotion?
I would say enriched discussion.
Empowered, if this is my team to work with, and hopeful.
Encouraged, inspired.
I feel overwhelmed. And I feel hopeful.
Oh, okay. You sure? Right.
I feel motivated and enlightened.
Hard to overflow with.
Say that again. You're hard to
Not
overflow with.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I think it's hard to overflow with.
Well, I can only say it in 2 words.
I'm just anxious to get to the rules. I'm just saying. You see what happens? So you set the rule with expectations, and people set it off right. Everybody follows it, and you do things. I got it's like a perfect example. Go ahead, Kendaya.
Let's say determined and inspired.
I'm feeling encouraged and tired. Tired, good tired though, right? Like work tired, like we did something good. So what I want to do is just, take the last remaining 3 minutes to thank everybody for participating. We're really excited. Sometimes we start these conversations and people are not quite sure what they have us doing. And what we hope is that, and what we see from how we started how we end, is that it generally does spark a sense of some emotion, excitement to a certain level. Even in regards to being overwhelmed, it's like it still sparks of things happening that create conversation and thought, right? And so that's what we want to do. And I think the other thing is, I'm not sure who said it, but through CEJ and the work that we've been able to do, it has totally shown many of us how to think outside of the box. Like, these structures are nothing, right? They should not be a barrier to anything we want to see. And that we think our children should have access to and opportunity to. And sometimes society puts us in these norms, and whether it's gendered or, female, male, or whether it's, religious, like we're putting these norms, and how do we break outside? And those norms allow us, force us to stay in boxes. And even in this thing, it's forced you to stay in boxes. And so we have systems that are out there, like an education system, that says this is your place. You can be on a PTA, you can be on a school leadership team, you can be part of this, and you can be part of a community education council, right? That's a box, right? They put you in. And this is what you can decide, and this is what you can do. And so these conversations, what I hope is, one, we do want to get to the conversation around deeper learning, but when you speak of deeper learning, like, this is what this looks like, like, as parents, this is what you think that deeper learning looks like. And also at the same time, it's like breaking down these walls of the school and tearing off the roof to say, we're going to create this school the way we want it and we envision it to be. And the hopeful part of it is that we can do it, because when we're in these spaces together, like, we feel empowered collectively, like we talked about being a collective space. So imagine the spaces in our schools are creating that for children, and they graduate feeling like they're in community, right? That they're not by themselves, all alone out there to figure it out for themselves. And so as we move forward to have more of these conversations, we're definitely going to reconnect with you all, because we want to, one, let you know how things happen, what your input was and how it shaped the report, but also to continue to have the conversation. Like, how do we have these local conversations? They don't have to stop here. They're conversations that we should be having all the time. And so folks on Facebook, thank you for participating. And Lynn, what's up, girl? And so please, even in the conversations on Facebook Live, like, what is deeper learning? All these questions people should be answering. And so thank you all for participating. We got an hour and a half. I said an hour and a half. Again, that's something that I've learned. You say something, you stick by it. And thank you again for coming out and taking your time, because it was a sacrifice to come here and bring your babies and, so thank you.
Thank you.